Some members of Donald Trump's family, including Ivanka herself, are now under increased legal threat coming from multiple directions simultaneously, and Donald Trump is not a big fan of that. So let's start off with the January 6th commission, which sent a letter to Ivanka Trump requesting her, in their words, voluntary cooperation about, quote, a wide range of critical topics related to the Capitol riot. The letter said the lawmakers want to discuss conversations she witnessed or participated in relating to the president's plan to obstruct or impede the counting of electoral votes. So it is not difficult to figure out what it is that they're referring to there. We know earlier this month, the committee's vice chair, Representative Liz Cheney, told ABC News that the committee, quote, had firsthand testimony that his daughter Ivanka went in at least twice to ask Trump to please stop the violence. Live on the 6th, he's watching it, he's eating popcorn, he's laughing at all the worst moments. She tried to stop it, supposedly. On the day of the riot, she released a statement saying, the violence must stop immediately, please be peaceful. And so, is that true? Did that actually happen? What did he say in response? What were other people in the room saying? She knows, and because they asked for her voluntary cooperation, I am sure that that will be forthcoming, Francesca.
I guess I think the craziest part about all of this to me, and the fact that someone like Ivanka would release a statement, and that we know that people like Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and other folks at Fox News were furiously texting Mark Meadows on the day and like, oh, you gotta stop this, you gotta call it off. Like, buddies, didn't you know this was going to happen? I guess you were on the outs of this because a lot of people knew it was going down, and including sitting Congress people knew it was going down. Everyone in the White House knew it was going down. So it seems like their attempts to like quell the violence were like, in earnest, like that they didn't think it would get this bad. It's like, yeah, it was supposed to get this bad.
Yeah, the idea, well, it was supposed to get as bad as was necessary for their fever dream to come true, basically. Well, they're not gonna get her voluntary cooperation. That's a bold prediction coming from me. But even before we know what she will end up saying, Donald Trump is not happy about this, not happy that they are trying to talk to members of his family. He said in response to this, they're using whatever powers they have. They couldn't care less. They're vicious people. It's a very unfair situation for my children. Very, very unfair. It's a disgrace what's going on. They're using these things to try and get people's minds off how incompetently our country is being run, and they don't care. They'll go after children. As HuffPost very helpfully makes clear, Ivanka Trump is not actually a child. She is in fact a 40-year-old adult woman with children of her own. And it's almost endearing. He still sees them as children, despite the fact that she was a White House aide, apparently with at least some level of security clearance. His other adult failed children run his business insofar as it is a business. So at some point, I think, yeah, they can try to talk to them. If you don't want children to be involved, why did you involve them in your business and the presidency?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting angle, like well played. You're sort of, whispering to the Q people when you just mention children, save the children. The poor actual Save the Children Foundation is like, God damn it, what are we changing our name to? But then also like, oh, going after family. Republicans love to talk about how dare you bring my family into this. Like, you brought your family into this. They were your White House staff, as you mentioned. So they're pretty much in it. In fact, you brought them into all of your financial crimes as well with the Trump organization. So, I mean, look, rich people bring their kids into their financial crimes. This is like, what working class people, when they like run out their kids' credit or something like that, it's the same thing, but on a giant level, and probably will never be held accountable for.
At the very least, look, you're right to point out the hypocrisy that he involved his children, but at least he's never made it personal about other people's children. You would have to look very hard to find an instance of Donald Trump doing that. Well, not look, you'd have to hunt really hard. You'd have to hunter really hard to find an instance where he brought up someone else's children, like in press conferences, in rallies, on the debate stage live. You'd have to hunter very hard to identify that. I don't think you would, honestly. Anyway, if this entire situation doesn't feel succession-y enough, it's about to get succession-ier. Because Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, claimed that Trump said at one point that if one of his kids had to go to prison over the family business, to make sure it was Don Jr., not Ivanka. That is, spoiler alerts, that's a scene from the show. But anyway, he said specifically, and Donald said it to me. I mean, I wouldn't say it if it wasn't said directly to me. He goes, if one or the other has to go to prison, make sure that it's Don, because Don would be able to handle it. And what do you think?
You know, Eric is there. It's like neither Don nor Ivanka, and Eric's there like, Dad, just so you know, I am willing to go to prison for however long. I mean, honestly, 40 years. Let's do it. Like, that's how much I love you. And I'll assume I'll get promoted, but eventually it doesn't even matter. Like, decades, I'll go.
Yeah,
big Tom energy.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I doubt that that's happening. And could he handle it better? I mean, I don't think Ivanka would do very well in a real prison, but neither would Don Jr. And let's keep it real. First of all, they're never going to literally any prison. So again, while these updates can be fun and interesting, and I'm glad that committees are doing the work they're supposed to do, nothing will ever happen because America is a failed state. But even if they were to go to prison, they're not going to serious prison. They're going to a prison that will have nicer amenities than literally any vacation I have ever gone on or will ever go on. I feel very confident in that.
Oh, anyway. I think Don Jr. would like it. He'd be like, oh, thank God, pressure is off. I've got all these cameos to fulfill. I'm doing all these recordings for $50 a pop.
Oh God.
Take my phone away from me, please.
Come on, Don Jr. Even Rudy gets 400. But anyway, yeah, he might, depend. How he'll do is gonna really come down to how accessible white powder is in that particular prison. Anyway, now those past quotes by Michael Cohen might make it seem as if Trump is willing to throw Don Jr. overboard, but he does at least seem to have this affection for Ivanka, various forms of affection, some of them appropriate, others not so much. But it turns out, at least according to Michael Cohen, and bear in mind, whenever we give you quotes from Michael Cohen, remember that he's an awful person who works for awful people, and there's literally no reason to believe a word that he says. He says he believes there is, quote, not a chance that the former president would offer to cooperate with investigators to shield even his daughter from her legal troubles. And apparently ready,
Michael Cohen did jump ship though. Like, I understand that like most people who've worked in Trump's inner circle have like, we should not believe a single word they say. But if there's one person, now granted, I'm not gonna buy his book, but if there's one person, it's the guy who's got nothing left to lose, which is Michael Cohen, who's already serving a 3-year federal prison sentence for the admission of the crimes that he did for Donald Trump. Trump should be the one serving that time, but he's not. So it's like, when you got someone who's got nothing left to lose, I'm like, yeah, listen to that guy. The fixer, Trump's fixer for decades. Yeah, listen to that guy. So if he says nothing's gonna happen, then John, I think our suspicions are correct.
Yeah, I think so. But by the way, as I alluded to at the beginning, the January 6th commission, them wanting to talk to Ivanka and other members of the family, that is but one aspect of the, in the end, likely ineffectual attempt to have some sort of consequences for the Trumps. Additionally, New York AG Letitia James has said that her investigations into the Trump organization has uncovered significant evidence of fraudulent and misleading asset valuations. That's a story we talked about last week on the show. James has taken legal action to enforce subpoenas issued to Donald Trump and his children, Don Jr. and Ivanka, who she says were, quote, closely involved in the transactions in question, which theoretically at least seems like, well, that's a little bit more likely to result in some sort of legal action. A lot of the stuff has got to be documented. She seems very confident about it. This isn't just conversations, this is demonstrable financial crimes. But again, it's America. So what do we think is gonna come of that?
Will any of this prevent him from being able to run again? That's really all I want to know. I don't even need prison time. I just want to know, can he still run for president?
Look, just everyone, he's gonna be president again. Like, because you think, so I'll say, well, why is he gonna be president again? Well, because we live in the worst timeline. No, John, we don't live in the worst timeline. He lost in his reelection bid. There's reasons for hope. Sure, I like the idea of that. But what you don't understand is that in the worst timeline, he doesn't get elected and then get elected again. Sure, that sounds bad, but doesn't it sound worse to have a 4-year respite and then he gets elected again? And we'll see. But But have you noticed what Biden's up to? I looked for something optimistic or policy focused having to do with the Biden administration to cover today. Not seeing a lot. I don't know. I think she just committed suicide. I'm not sure.
I've been doing that. I've done it. Like I think I've committed suicide 4 times now.
I apologize.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.